So, for the listeners out there, because we have a lot of different ranges of listeners. So, what is venture capitalist?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Capital.
So, venture capital predates tech. I think I just want to make that very, very clear to everyone. Like fundamentally, by definition, venture capital has nothing to do with technology at all, right? Venture is basically an idea of like you're starting a business or starting some sort of, there's an opportunity and you want to take advantage of it, right? Doesn't have to be building a business. It could just be like there's a venture. I want to start, writing a book, for example. That's a venture, right? The capital side is the money side. That's the financial right aspect of it. So when you have venture capital coming together, that's where, okay, how can we use the idea of building and taking advantage of a community, of an opportunity, and then fueling that with capital? I would say it's an entity in and of itself, because going back to the ancients and all those Greeks, like they had ventures themselves. How do we build a pyramid? That's a venture in itself, right?
Yeah.
How do we build the Colosseum? That's a venture, right? And so resources go into building that venture. And so obviously now it's money, but back then probably it was gold, for example. That's the fuel. Like I'll give you 2 bars of gold and in exchange for some sort of ownership in your venture, whatever it may be. And then you get a return on that. So fast forward up until maybe the past 30, 40 years, that's when you start to see the industrial revolution come into form, right? And that's where you start to see technology companies like Cisco, Intel, Apple. These are sort of the OGs of the tech VC world. These are the companies that really drove what VC is all about today, right? And so there's a lot of VCs, very famous VCs now that you'll hear about. Sequoia Capital, Andreessen Horowitz, right? Bessemer Ventures. These are VCs that have been around in the game for many, many years. So they're sort of the granddaddies of VC, right? But in a nutshell, yeah, as I mentioned, venture capital right now is really taking money and then supporting founders or people who want to take these ventures to build amazing things. And for me, that's what the essence of venture capital is all about.
So how did you get into VC? Because you did say, like, if we go back to your timeline, you did a number of startups. You said, look, I don't want to keep doing it. I want to work for myself as well. And then couple that with the fact that you knew you were coming back to Australia. VC-wise then, when did it start to enter the picture?
When I started to be more involved in the ecosystem over there, you organically build a network, directly or indirectly, whether you like it or not. You're going to start to know people. And thankfully for me, I was able to get into a network of people who knew how to invest in companies. And this isn't your one-of-the-mill public equity companies and all. This is private stuff, like private company, private equity, if you will. And those deals are sort of hush-hush. It's a bit of a cottage industry in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, this is fascinating stuff. Like, how do you get into this sort of stuff, right? Because that's the way it happened with Uber and all this thing. Like, there was some early stage first believers who got in super early. And then the question is, you ask yourself, is like, well, how did those guys know to invest in Uber? And how did you get in onto Uber's IPO and all those things? Like all of these questions, right? It's like rabbit hole. And so that was something that I fundamentally wanted to know. And so I sort of put that to the side, and I never thought really much of it, to be honest. But then eventually some friends and, they got me into some interesting deals, and I was like, just throw some money in there. But I didn't have a huge pocketbook or a huge wallet to say the least. But what I could do is just provide some amount of small check here and there. That was enough, right? And I felt that there was something there because one, it's just not just providing the money, but it's also providing the value add. And a lot of the founders who I invested in realized that I had a bit of a background behind me. I worked in Australia, I worked in startups. So I wasn't just a bank, like I could just write checks, right? It was like, I can actually help here. I can actually help you build your business. And they were like, oh, that's awesome. Like, yeah, do you mind if we just go on like weekly or bi-weekly Zoom calls and hash it out? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, and I had a 9-to-5 gig at that time. Like, so I would do this after work or whatever it may be on the weekends. And I'd just come in and, you sort of riff on each other about, what do you think about doing this? And what are you building right there? And eventually that started to snowball. And then that spread that I was more involved in working that founder, and that founder told his founders and all those things. And I started to obviously open my wallet a little bit more to start investing in these companies with tiny checks and what have you. And I think I started to develop, you know, a bit of a reputation in terms of like what I was able to help with. But I think for me, I enjoyed that experience, like first and foremost. And then I started to realize that my day job, my angel investing and advising started to take over my day job quite a bit.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I knew that there was a bit of overlap. I was like, oh, okay, hang on. This is not good, because now that I'm starting to think more about my angels, my investing stuff and working with founders than my data job. And I was like, okay, well, what's paying the bills? So I needed to focus on my day job. But then I realized that, okay, I needed to have a clear separation. But then more and more, you know, I started to be more excited about the angel investing and more excited about helping founders. I was like, well, maybe that's a sign. Like maybe that's a sign for me to start thinking about what could I do to really wrap all of that into one nice package, right? Still be involved in the startup ecosystem, still be involved in tech, still be involved in investing. And so like there's this like trifecta of amazing things. I was like, okay, I got to get into this more, right? But also I wanted to also have an impact as best as I could, to be honest. And I knew in the US it was already very saturated with a lot of money and VC and all those things. What really needed help is here, like Australia and Southeast Asia and all of these areas, New Zealand. Like the founders needed help. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I sort of used that as the right ingredients to really cook up Metagrove in a way that I could be able to create this community, but also be able to help a lot of these founders and give them a sense of the bigger picture of things and give them a sense about, you know, this is what you can do. This is so much potential you can have. And that was really impactful for me. And also trying to really, especially here in Western Sydney, it's a very diverse community of individuals, right? It's not just one demographic. You have people from different ethnicities. And so something that I've been really excited about is helping underrepresented founders in a way and try to help them with their business or venture, whatever it may be, not just financially, but also from a mentor perspective, right? And I think there's a big need for that, especially when, you have this tradition, this Asian mentality, or maybe this tradition of like, play it safe, study hard and then go into a nice job. Well, how about you study hard, but also you build something then, build something for yourself. And I think that's really a passion of mine. And I really want to make sure that a lot of the up and coming entrepreneurs come through, be it from whatever background they come from. And then they can be the next inspiration of people coming in. And so we can fuel that and then create an ecosystem of diverse founders at the end of the day.